Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today we're going to do something slightly new for my channel. I don't do many single reviews on my channel, which I wanna improve on moving forward eventually. However, this is not one book only, it's like a series review, but I wanted to have this occasion to go into a bit more spoilery territory just for me to really unpack this series that has been taking over my August, and I had an amazing time just spending the whole day reading for a whole week in order to go through all the series. And I thought that because it's so far from my usual comfort zone, also has provided me with a unique reading experience, I wanted to bring this video online. I know that this is somehow a beloved series for people that are more into romance fantasy than I am, and so yeah, hopefully we can have a good discussions in the comments down below. Just to let you know though, I am gonna go definitely into spoilers, so I'm gonna spoil stuff, so if you have not read the series, maybe you can just stick to hear me speak about these very quickly in my wrap-up without any spoilers, monthly wrap-up that's gonna be at the end of August. So here is not for you if you've not read the series and you don't really want to be spoiled. So the whole series I have read in the month of August. So okay, technically speaking, I've read the first book a couple of months ago, and then I waited and waited to have the whole series before binge reading it when I was on annual leave this year from work, so I didn't have any work to do or anything. And I spent my whole day reading, basically a book a day, is the Broken Bonds series by J. Bree. Now this is massive and it's quite heavy, but also I don't think they're in order at all. I'm gonna show you the cover properly in a second, but this is the series that I'm gonna talk about today, and I'm gonna spoil today in order to give you like a full review, including how much I loved my experience of reading it, but also including all the things that I think them must be unpicked and maybe things I loved less. So yeah, I'm gonna speak about them all. I don't really have a ranking apart from saying that book number 1, Broken Bonds, is my favorite one, definitely my favorite one. And my least favorite one was definitely last book in the series. My books are going all over the place. So yeah, those two, first place, last place. To be fair, all the others are really liked equally, so I can't like, choose between them. I really enjoyed the main chunk as well of the series, but definitely not the end. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the covers 101. So here we've got Oleander with Broken Bonds, which is book number 1. I really enjoy how these books were like the covers and formatted inside, like the inner pages like these. Book number 2, which took me 2 months to get, and then eventually, because I had to wait 2 months to read this book, I decided to keep the whole series, so book number 2 to 6, until I was on annual leave from my job, so I could just binge read it, because these books end up in a cliffhanger all the time, apart from the last one of course, and they are addictive. So I decided, you know what, I have suffered having to wait after book 1, but I'm not gonna do this anymore. The suffering is over. I'm gonna wait until I've got all the other 5 books and then binge read them. So this is what I've done with Savage Bonds. And Savage Bonds inside, let me show you the in pages. I'm not gonna bother with spoilers, considering that we already established that this review is gonna be spoilery. So that was Griffin. Is that how you pronounce it? Let me know. And then we've got book number 3, which is Blood Bond, has North on the cover. This is what it looks like. This is, I think, the biggest book in the series, if I'm not mistaken. I'll show you inside. I love the names North and Knox, like love them so much. Then we got Gabriel. It looks like. And then we got Atlas, which I adore this name. We've got Atlas, and the in pages are so cool. And finally we got book number 6, Unbroken Bonds with Knox on the cover. Really love the back of these, and these unfortunately doesn't have anything inside, and I'm gonna talk about these in a second. So yeah, the spines looks incredible next to each other. I'm so happy to have actually purchased the whole series, no regrets whatsoever, and they do look quite cool on my shelves. The only other thing I wanted to say about the covers is that initially, I don't know why, I thought that each book would kind of focus on one specific boy. So in this case, you know, this would be Nox's book and this would be Atlas' book and so on, but that is not the case. So all the guys are present in all the books, she engages with all of them throughout the whole series, so truly the covers are just for our own pleasure, which I really appreciated. I initially was like, oh okay, you know, one book for a boy, I don't know how much I like this idea, and the fact that this is completely not what happens, you get all the boys at all times, really worked well for me. So these are too heavy to hold on okay, while I speak with you guys, so how about I hold on. Let me just hold on to the first one, okay? I think it's fair, which is the beginning of everything. And I think I want to premise this because I'm really going to unpack the series. I'm really going to go into a lot of the things that I didn't particularly love ultimately, but I want to premise, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I hope you decide to stay and subscribe. I usually don't read romance, and this is specifically like very much new adult with a lot of erotica elements, and it was very out of my comfort zone for the last few years. I used to read this stuff all the time when I was a teen, okay? So then I think I've read so many of those when I was a teen in my very early 20s that I burned out. So for years, up to almost a decade now, I didn't reach out for erotica fantasy. I would never reach out for a contemporary erotica romance, for example. I know there are a lot of like mafia romances and like that, which we're not gonna get into that because I am morally against those things. So the only time I would, since I read this series, and that I would now consider picking up stuff like these, so erotica fantasy or like very romance with a lot of sex inside series, are if there is a fantasy element. This is not me saying I've become a romance reader, no. However, this kind of juicy fantasy series, and especially the reverse harem thing, works very well for me because, to be fair, it's the farther from my true life you can ever imagine. The fact that this is absurd in a sense, like it's a fantastical world where, you know, people have powers, have these paranormal powers, these gifts, and then you're bonded. Like it's so far away from everything that even resemble any reality you can imagine, and that is why probably I loved it so much. It's just truly immersing yourself in something that you can get only by reading fantasy, right? And I also discovered probably, or like this series confirmed, that I can put up with a lot of problematic behavior, a lot of, you know, juicy but questionable behaviors if it's in a fantasy setting, because I can suspend belief. I can just say, listen, this is a fantastical world, again, creature stuff happening, like none of this is real, it's okay. While, for example, with a mafia romance, which has a lot of roots in stuff that happen every day and people that lose their life every day in reality, that I struggle more and I don't justify more. Like I don't like to romanticize something that is actually real and actually very violent and not romantic at all. But here, I mean, we're talking about guys that can shift into animals, that can read minds, that can, you know, have the power of controlling nightmares. Nothing of this was real. So for me to just say, well, you know what, just enjoy the ride, no one is gonna get hurt, no one is gonna ever think that could be reality. I also want to say that I truly want to say thank you to the author, because I didn't have like such a consuming reading experience since I was again a teen. And since I've read some of my, you know, favorite books, but all my favorite books are usually standalone, so I didn't have like the constant 6 books in a row that I couldn't put down experience since I can remember. So I wanted to just thank the author for creating a series that became my air, my food, my water, my sleep for literally 7 days. And that is something that is unique and something that I am always going to be grateful. So however I'm going to unpack in this video, this series, ultimately this gave me the best reading experience I had in a decade, and that is me just saying thank you, J. Brie, I will pick up more by you. It's been amazing, and I really needed this change. I really needed to read something that was consuming, because I've been reading for so long, so many different books, so many genres, and I never had just a complete immersive experience as I had in here. But please do leave your recommendations down below, because I found out that, you know, series like these, now and then when I'm reading other heavy stuff, things that I can literally read in a day, and they are just like, you know, brainer fantasy romance with like actiony and, you know, juicy scenes in, are something that I should reach out more for, because they are just a good time. To be honest, with, you know, a hectic life as many of us have, this is something that sometimes now and then I need. Said all of that, I do want to also be quite objective with the series, and ultimately this is a series that I would give probably on average 4 stars. It's not a perfect series, it's not 5 stars. This was a 5-star, and the reason why this was a 5 stars is, first of all, Ollie, the character of Oleander, she's fire, she is sassy, she doesn't take any shit from anybody, and all of these guys that, you know, are trying to control her or somehow getting something out of her, she really stands up for herself. And I honestly do believe that if I had not read this book first, so if by any chance the author had plunged into book 2 immediately, I would probably not have continued on the series, because the fiery, standing up for herself Oleander that really has a lot of character in this book eventually does go downhill the more you progress with the series. So that kind of fierce, I don't need any help, please don't stand in front of me, I can defend myself, really slowly but surely diminishes, and at one point almost disappears throughout the series. Yes, she can still be sassy, but she's definitely, by the end of the series, the girl that will stand behind, the girl that will let the guys tell her what to do. And that is unfortunate, because I believe that if we had kept this Oleander throughout the book, for how much, you know, she can then fall in love with these guys and have a relationship with them, would have made the whole experience 1,000 times better. It would have been a 5-star series. The fact that this Oleander, we don't get this Oleander anymore throughout the series, is truly what somehow bumped the series down. Yes, I had some laughs here and there with the writing, still some of the characters, some of, you know, like the banter between them, whether it's the case, but nothing made me laugh as much as Oleander in this book and how she treated the guys. And this doesn't come with any jealousy or any of the boys trying to make Oleander only theirs, so they really share within their bond group, and that was, I guess, to a certain degree refreshing. Like, yes, they could be jealous, it wasn't like prevalent in this series, there wasn't like that kind of macho man side of things, it wasn't present, because again everybody accepted that they were all part of his bonds. Another thing that I think she does in this book, the author, is the characterization of the boys, the 5 boys. So we got Grithon, we got Atlas, Gabriel, Nox and North, who are brothers. The fact that she really makes Oleander stands up for herself in this, and really makes these 5 boys unique, but also makes Oleander relationship within each of these bonds, you know, with each of the boys unique. It's what really created the tension for me, is what really made me go through the rest of the series. And without, I think honestly that this book is the backbone of the reason why then I binge read 5 books. And yeah, she created such a perfect sexual tension and dynamics in these that I wanted to see them play out in the rest of the series, and I didn't let go until they all played out. So after book 1, the girl boss vibe does diminish to a certain extent, of course, because Oleander is the most powerful of the group. She is the most powerful ever, basically. So there are still action scenes where she is fundamental in changing the tides and things, but it's more how she approaches the boy. This is what I mean when the girl boss kind of goes downhill a bit. Which, yes, to a certain degree, you know, I understand why, but it's something that I would have wished she had kept up for a little longer or forever possible. Not saying that she shouldn't be with them, like that is why I wanted to read this series. I wanted her to be with all of them, of course, but I just wished she had, I don't know, I just wish their character had kept a little bit more sassiness than she actually did. The erotica side of these I really enjoyed, and I don't read stuff like this. Maybe that is why I enjoyed it, because it's like, because I don't read sex scenes in books very often because I just don't reach out for romance or stuff like this. It was like, whoa, and I was fairly surprised. I have to say that I don't do reading vlogs. I don't think my channel is big enough to do reading vlogs, and they are a pain in the ass to edit and everything, but I kind of regretted not to do reading vlogs for this series because I am generally someone when I read, I don't do many faces, like I'm very usually composed. However, with this series, I shouted, I threw the book. They sometimes, you know, you have characters like Griffin, which are like very serious, always like, you know, in tug gear, always ready to fight, but always very composed and silent overall, very much in the background to a certain extent, especially in the first books. But then he has a filthy mouth on him that when he came out of the blue, I might be reading and then I just throw a book. I was like, what did he just say? So the steam scenes in these were very good in my opinion, like again because I wanted these pair with these bonds to be all together. We go into threesome, we go into orgy scenes, like we can see them all. Yeah, I found it entertaining, I'll be really honest. I really enjoyed the sexual tension. I think it was expressed quite well throughout the series, which is definitely a plus. Like I could see, like the thirst they had for each other really came through the pages. One thing I didn't particularly like, just to start with a bit of more of a negative things, is when in book 3, I believe it's from book 3, but don't quote me on these, the author starts including POVs of the boys, and unfortunately this is done often in this kind of romantic new adult fantasy series, and I've never, sorry, that was my phone, and I've never seen it done well. I don't think the boys' point of view added anything to the story. I don't think they were necessary, and I don't think they were, the writing and the way they came across was enough distinguishable compared to Ollie. So I would have just sticked with Ollie's point of view. I think it would have been better. I didn't hate their chapter. Nox, to a certain extent, I understand more. So I would have probably accepted North and Nox. But again, it wasn't very much needed. She could have obtained the same things by Ollie engaging with the boys. So yeah, I just wish she had avoided that, because ultimately, unfortunately, I think, you know, when they do the point of view of a male, they do sound like the female protagonist. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well for me personally. Okay, so in terms of the actual boys, let me say these, and I do generally don't mind them, but just trying to find their faces. Atlas and Gabe, they were quite irrelevant. Gabe most of all. I understand that some of you might really enjoy Gabe, and I did enjoy them all, truly, honestly. But in terms of progression of the story and how much relevant the story was, even Atlas, if it wasn't for his family ties, it wouldn't make much of a difference in my opinion. Like the real tension for me, the real sexual tension, the romantic elements came from North, Nox and Griffon a lot. Atlas and Gabe felt very much like best friends. And this is just a personal preference though. I think some of us prefer romances where, you know, you got that kind of best friend dynamics that then becomes love. For me, I'm very much for, you know, the bad boy, or for, you know, distant and enemy to lovers. So Gabe and Atlas didn't provide that element to me. Yes, I didn't mind them, I enjoyed them as characters. Where the these covers are amazing, especially Atlas one. Atlas grew on me more than Gabe ever did. To be fair, by the end I was more sold on Atlas, but to be fair, like the tension that I was there for was Nox, first of all. And yes, I do have a Nox smile too. And Griffon. North, I didn't love North. I understand why he was there. I understood his role in the story, and I do know that for Ollie he has a big relevance, North. For me, I tolerated North. I never grew too enamored with him. And of all of the boys, North felt the more far-fetched in terms of relationship with actually Ollie. I appreciate the tension more than I did with Gabriel and Atlas, because again the best friend element, but North wasn't my favorite. I think truly Griffon and Nox. Yes, I want to justify that whatever Nox does in book number 1 is not okay. The scene is not okay. I think the author addressed it. I think it has been addressed throughout the series, and nothing of the sort has ever happened again. It doesn't make the scene right. However, I would be lying if I was saying that because of a scene I wrote Knox off. No, I adored Knox, and I adored where he was coming from, how his characterization was done, how, you know, someone who had such deep trauma translated in him becoming aggressive and him distrusting women and treating women like objects. I'm not justifying his actions, I'm just saying that I understood his actions by the end. Speaking of Knox, though, I think I didn't mind like the progression of the character. I enjoyed it overall how it was done. However, I thought he had more potential, and however, I had wished that it was done even more intensely than it was. I really loved how book number 4 ends, so when Knox actually dies, I believe in this one, and the beginning of the book with Atlas in, so at the beginning of this where, you know, we got the soul jumping and finally Ollie gets a lot of answer from Knox. I really enjoyed that part. I do hope though that somehow that relationship had been milked more throughout the series. And Knox, though, is the one that remains the more like himself. Him and Grithon are also the ones that remain the more like themselves from book 1 to the end. Yes, of course, now Knox changes because he then finally opens up to Ollie and he starts to trust Ollie and accept that it's okay to love Ollie. And I don't mind how it was done, but there is a part of me where like this could have been done like a whole love story. I think Knox's love story could have been done even more intensely than it was done. This is just my opinion. You could have done like a whole 6 books just with the relationship with Knox, because again, Knox was one of my favorite. Yes, definitely is a kind of bad boy thing going on that I really like, but also Knox it was very interesting as a character in my opinion, him and Grithon. So yeah, my favorite ones, Knox and Grithon. Don't let me choose, maybe because of the scene in book 1, I would have to, you know, if I had to, I don't know, have a gun pointed in my head asking me to choose, I would probably choose Grithon as my ultimate favorite, but Knox and Grithon and Ollie, that was perfection. Speaking of North, for the oldest brother of Knox, can we address how in book number 6 he is the sole reason why Vivian is dead? This guy, like we know, we get his point of view at one point where he goes to the god bound, and he just says, we're gonna kill you. I know you wanna be, you know, just released so you can cycle again and meet your lover in the next life, but we don't care because of course we would sacrifice everything for our bonded, but we don't care about the love story of someone else, which again, that was something that I really didn't like, how they treated this guy who had actually helped them to a certain degree. Yes, he had committed murder because of the reasons why, but ultimately he had helped them and they just dismissed him. Like, they're just like, no, we're gonna kill you. And he's like, but I'm in love with someone and I just want to cycle again so I can meet them in the next life. And they have been cycling forever in order to meet, you know, the bond inside Ollie. And they had done shitty stuff themselves, so they should have gotten the point of view of this other character, you know, this god bond that just wanted to have another chance of meeting a love of his life. And North goes, no, we're gonna kill you. And then of course this god bond decides, you know, to escape so he doesn't get killed. So he kills a bunch of people, useless. At that point, I think book 6, we're gonna go into a bit more detail in a second, but book 6 was a bit of a mess, to be fair. But Vivian gets killed for no apparent reason, and no one addressed the fact that if North had shut up, this would have never happened. Like, even if you wanted to kill that god bond, don't fucking go and tell him, like, you know, shut up. This is why Grithon should do stuff of the intelligence kind, and North should just mind other stuff, other business. And this is something to say, for example, that point of view, North didn't add anything, actually put like a gap in the plot, because like no one is gonna say anything to North doesn't feel any guilt, because at the end of the day Vivian's death is also on his shoulders, so that is not addressed at all. I didn't like that part of how he opened up his mouth to threaten someone without understanding where they're coming from, even if he's in a very similar position himself and has been for centuries now. And then that's just dismissed. Oh yeah, the guy escaped, killed someone because he didn't want to be killed. Yeah, because you told him you were gonna kill him. But then no one held you responsible for that. You didn't hold yourself responsible for that. At least we don't ever get any other North point of view that speaks about this issue. So that was a gap in the plot. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Book number 6, let's just talk about it. Why? Like, you could have finished with book number 5 and we would have had a happy ending, a very rewarding ending. Molly and the boys were all together already. They already had established that, you know, Knox had come around, everybody was okay, like, you know, Ollie had defeated the bad guy, the guy that tormented her in her everyday life and in her nightmares. It was done. And then she was in pain, and these are the gods that want to eliminate them. But we're never given a proper why, a proper reason why. Like, yes, Pain has got mad and he just wants to destroy things. He can destroy the whole world. Why is he coming after me over and over again? What is the point? So I've read that this book was put together when the author was going through hardship. I don't know how, you know, this book came about. She wrote all of them in 2021, which is crazy for me that she put up so much work out. But I just don't understand why she had not taken more time. And I understand, I'm not judging, because I can imagine that there were pressures from the publishing industry, or whether it is from the fans, whether it is the case. But I do honestly think that this book is a testament of, for the sake of any god or creature or stuff you might believe in, wait, don't put up a book that is rushed, because this was a disaster, guys. I gave this 3 stars and I was being generous. And to be fair, this book took the whole series down a notch, because this was just not okay. And this book almost went in the territory of being boring. And to be fair, for how much problematic these books can be, or, you know, how many things against the boys, or whether you can say, they were never boring. I would honestly challenge you to a duel if you ever say that any of these books were boring, because they weren't, okay? They were just stuff happening after stuff happening, and, you know, action, orgy, action, kiss, action, sassy banter, what it is. So they were very entertaining. This one was almost boring. Yes, there is still the sex inside, but it felt like dragging about a plot that really didn't have substance, or really didn't have like a core motive to be there. Like, these guys, these gods wanted to eliminate this bond for no reason. It wasn't even like, oh, okay, we need to eliminate them because they're too powerful, they might be a danger to the world, we want to save the world. No, like, they don't care about the world, they don't care about anything, they don't care. And so if you don't care, why spending centuries chasing someone you don't care about? The fact that they just after you for the sake of being after you really didn't hold up. And for how much I can say, yes, I didn't mind a couple of more orgy scenes, we didn't need this book, okay? Not like this, at least. And you can say that this book also, in terms of the editing, you just get this actually page, and then it should have been like, as in all the other books, you know, every chapter should have ended up with this. We don't have anything of that. I think there are a couple of typos that I noticed, and English is not my first language, so for me noticing typos is not very common. I usually also read very quickly, so I noticed a couple of typos. I also noticed that some part of the font was faded. It was a bit of a mess, and it shouldn't have been there. I think if we had finished with book number 5, maybe a bit more lengthy, you know, to give a proper epilogue or something, I would have probably preferred overall, because I kind of want to pretend that this book didn't exist. Also, the very much like epilogue when they, you know, they're on the yacht, I don't know, it just felt very anticlimactic, guys. I don't understand why, like, after we've been together for so long, that scene, and just say, oh yeah, everything was a mess, but then we are on a yacht with all my boys, bye. Somehow it just felt out of character, which is something absurd, because you never know what you can get from this series. But yeah, it is a bit absurd. Yes, this series overall is very much sex. You're gonna go to a camp, we're gonna kill people, go back and have more sex, and then we're gonna back to a camp, refuge camp, we're gonna do mayhem, and then go back. So it is pretty much over and over the same things. It does work because of the boys and the tension, but once she fixes everything with the boys, once she fixes, you know, Knox now is on board, and that really kept the tension going. For me, at least, like the idea of, you know, yes, she's now bonding with all these guys, she's getting to know them, each book we're getting closer to Knox, but then when Knox is on board, you don't have that tension anymore. And so yes, she throws in these other gods, fair enough, but were they warranted? Because now it feels like very much like fan fiction rather than the story that we are here for. Because once Nox come around, once you have defeated Silas, there is not much else. Either you give us like a bigger, more interesting bad guy, which she tried and I didn't think worked out at all, or just wrap it up, because otherwise it becomes fan fiction. And yeah, so this is to say I did love the last book in the series, and that ending, like, you know, just on the yacht, you know, just to say bye bitches, I'm on a yacht with my boys. I don't know, that didn't work out well for me. One other thing I really disliked, and that's probably the thing that I dislike the most, because it is been like the spread throughout the series. Not in book number 1, because it's the beginning of his friendship with Sage, Sawyer and Felix and so on. So because it was the beginning, it didn't annoy me. But throughout the whole series, the way she writes the friendship between Oleander and Sage, very much girl power, you're fantastic, you can do no wrong, girl. That for me made me feel like I was too old to read the series. And those kind of friendship that feels like very, you know, the friendship you want to have in your mind, but they don't feel real, they don't feel like realistic at all. Yes, nothing of this was realistic, fair enough, but those girl power friendship where, you know, oh, of course you can do it because you're so kick-ass. No, like, girl, like, no. And even when I was at that age, and, you know, I would, like, those are not the friendship I've ever seen, not like just my friendship, but even people that I know of, like, no one had ever behaved that way with their friends. It felt very forced to a point. And okay, maybe I'm another generation, maybe now that's how friendship works. This book, if you wanted to, just upon reflection now, like speaking with, well, a camera, but hopefully with people listening in, I would have loved to see babies. Like, I felt like the only thing that was left is a baby. And you say, why, Eva? Like, she's just 19. Fair enough. And if, you know, you could have given me an epilogue when she was 30 or whether it is, where she was running around with babies or kids, because they mention kids, that's why I'm saying this, you know, oh, we want to have kids, and, you know, one each, whether a Draven baby. So because it was mentioned, I felt like it would be in a better epilogue. If you don't want to do a whole plot about, you know, getting pregnant or having a kid, or, you know, whether, I totally understand, you don't have to, but the epilogue, you could have given us that rather than a random scene on a yacht. But this is, again, is very much personal preference, what I wished from the series. I didn't write the series, so I can just, you know, just go with my personal preferences, doesn't matter. It's not really a critique, it's just something I would have loved to see. So yeah, friendship didn't work well. I did like Sawyer and Sage when they were being sassy, and so sometimes I had very good laugh when they were commenting on something. I just wish the way Ollie referred or spoke about her friendship was less infantile, in my opinion. It was also that kind of tropey friendship that you see in a lot of YA that in my opinion doesn't really stand on its own 2 feet. Like, in my opinion doesn't make sense. It feels like a friendship that there's a giggly and a lot of words without substance to it, in a sense. Yes, I did appreciate the way her and Sage behaved toward each other. That was, you know, the actually actions that they made toward each other that felt true friendship. But when they were just talking about a friend, referring to his friendship, it felt juvenile and not like a new adult with orgies inside. Like, the friendship should have been a bit more mature, in my opinion. But to end up on a high note, this book, I have read them, you know, 5 books from Monday to Sunday, I believe. I finished the last one. I had an amazing time. I had a lot of laughs. I do generally want to check her out more by the author, because I do believe that she has a lot of potential for, you know, creating these kind of sassy characters, a bit of, like, you know, banter and sexual tension she does very well. There are a lot of things that worked very well for me in these books, and I can only imagine how much the author is gonna grow and give us new stories. This series has a lot of potential for rereading it. I can see myself now and then rereading this series just to get those emotions back. And to be fair, some quotes from Grithon especially that come out of the blue are like, they're worth to be reread over and over again, and I think I'm gonna scream every time I'm gonna read these. I had an amazing time. I would love to hear more recommendations. I would love to hear what you thought about my opinions. Are your opinions different? Is there anything else I didn't speak about, you've noticed, you want to share with me? Because again, it's such like a lengthy series that I should have unpacked and stayed here hours and hours, but I didn't want to. I've already talked long enough, I think, but I would love to have a discussion with you in the comments down below, because no one I know knows about this series, and so I want to know from you guys. I want to have a discussion with you. Who was your favorite boy? Who was your least favorite? Tell me everything. Thank you for watching. If you're new, as I said, you know, I would love for you to stay and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!